Welcome back to the channel. Today we have another college football 25 video. We're going to be giving our thoughts on some of the main things EA should consider changing or outright removing from the game. While I think the game will be the best iteration of college football to date, as a community, we still need to notice key issues, quality of life improvements the team over at EA could make to make the game better. I want to also preface, nothing I mention here will ruin any one playthrough, but it could take away some of the avenues to immersion or just overall enjoyment. But before we get in any further, I'm going to give away another free copy, our third free copy and our last free copy of the base game to a random commenter. If we can get this video to 85 likes and the channel to 175 subs before July 18th, I will give away that free copy on release day. So let me know now in the comments what your biggest issue with the game so far is. The first point of contention I have is the pipeline tiers being hard locked for the entirety of the dynasty. They mentioned they did a historical assessment and noticed that most teams have been consistently getting players from certain areas across the country. While that is amazing to see they put the time and effort in to research each team that in depth, it concerns me for two reasons. One being it takes away from the ability to create your own world in terms of how you progress with your team. If you play as ULM and they have never historically gotten players from Florida, but I make a commitment to get some guys there from years over year, and over the course of 5 seasons, we come to a point where 20 to 30% of our team is from that area. I'm not going to be able to increase our tier in that pipeline or our rank in that pipeline. The second one comes from the aspect of what if a team specifically falls off, such as Nebraska had in the early 2000s. We won't see them lose their tier 1 status in any of those pipelines, and they'll still remain dominant in recruiting those areas. Issue number 2 comes from the Dynasty Length, and I have some various opinions on why I think that is. While the 30 years is efficient or sufficient enough to get most people through a playthrough, they're not really going to ever play those 30-year threshold. It's still a little disheartening to see. I mean, in NCAA 14, we had 60 years to go. That was a little long. I think 40 years or even 35 would fit better, as you could dedicate a few years as a coordinator, as most do. Or most coaches don't go ahead and go straight to a head coaching job. They take a few years to go through the offensive coordinator side or the defense coordinator side into their mid 30s. And if we did that, we wouldn't see your coach until you're 30 or 60 years old, 65. So giving it a few more years, you might get into the 70 years old. I mean, Nick Saban himself was 72 before he retired. Again, I'm sure that they made this decision not thinking based on the age of the coach you would be when you retire, but it is still a little interesting. They only chose 30 years. Issue number 3 revolves around the college football playoff. In the last few years, we've seen the playoff grow from 4 teams all the way up to 12 teams overnight. And many people think in the community that this is only a stepping stone to a larger 14 or even 16 team playoff. So with that in mind, why is this playoff so stagnant when it comes to rules, sets, and a number of entrants? I would love the ability to change it from 4 all the way up to 16. Another caveat to this would be the 5 and 7 rule. I think this will produce some weird results, such as like a 9-3 or 8-4 conference champion getting a first round bye. It would be great if we could change this from any combination of auto bids or just the top teams make it. Issue 4 and 5 revolve around conferences. The first is that we have a self-imposed conference limit. We have seen conferences come and go, RIP Pac-12, within the last 2 decades. It would make too much sense to give us the ability to add or subtract certain conferences down the line. The resurrection of the Big 8? Sure. The creation of a successor to the Southwest Conference with an all-Texas conference? Why not? Vanderbilt overseeing the implementation of the Southern Ivy League? Of course. But within the current limits of the game, we cannot expand to include some of these ideas, and if we were to reconstruct a current conference, we would see teams go independent at a really high rate. If we cannot expand conferences, we could have the option to change the logo and name of the conference to give it a more realistic feel. Maybe you can even create your own logo, but I can see that going wrong, so why not just give us the Big 8 logo or Pac-10 logo, and that would be really cool to see if we could see those down the line. Following that up, we have the team limit and team minimum. The limit of teams is going to be 20 teams this year, which seem reasonable. But we all know the ever money-hungry SEC and Big Ten will always look to have as many teams as they can. But 20 seems like the most reasonable max, since it would be insanely hard to schedule past that point, but it still limits the freedom to change the landscape of the game as we see fit. To go along with that is the minimum of teams we can have in a conference, which is 4. Even though there's an actual conference in real life that currently has 2 teams, and even in the game, there only has 2 teams. So removing this minimum, allowing us to take the conferences out, would resolve this issue. Coming in at 6, we have the lack of draft classes' ability to be transferred to Madden. From a licensing standpoint, I understand it, but I would have loved to see them give us the opportunity to replace these players with randomly generated guys once they try to transfer them over to the next level. It could be done on the front end or the back end, doesn't really matter. It would be cool to see how some of the draft classes, like down the line in 2040, play in the NFL, but we're not going to be able to see that without the ability to transfer draft classes. At 6, we have Team Builder. Team Builder has gotten a significant upgrade from what we can tell since the last time it was released 11 years ago. But the big issue I see is when you import a team, you have to choose a team to go. While many fans may not have an issue with killing off a smaller, lesser known school, I simply cannot. As a small school advocate, I would never do such a thing. Even if I would, it would ruin the immersion for me personally. It would be great to be able to add a 135th team to the fold rather than killing one off. Again, you probably couldn't do this with the 16 team edition like when you have an online dynasty. In that situation, I can see it making sense to replace a team. But when you're playing by yourself, it would be cool to just add one more team rather than having to remove one. Coming in at number 8, as similar to conference realignment, there has always been changes to who gets bids to certain bowl games. This year, we will see locked bids to bowl games that we cannot change. It would be great to have the ability to, at a minimum, reassign a bowl bid to a conference with more teams if you drop a conference below a certain amount of bowl game bids they have. I'm sure this is an automated replacement policy of teams that do not meet the threshold, but it would be great to have a choice to assign it directly to a conference you want. At number 9 is Dynasty Crossplay, or the lack thereof. The EA team has said it is more of a lack of time to get it done rather than a lack of desire. So hopefully we'll see it next year. It's still a little disheartening that they took all the time to do all these other things and not put one of these more basic features in the game that you can see in other video games. Coming to our 10th and final reason, we have the ability to play in high school during the road to glory. They said they made this decision based on the fact that they wanted this to be a 20 to 30 story mode that you could get through pretty quickly and play a lot of times. I feel like that kind of ruins the immersion for some people. You don't really get to play through your high school career, which is the road to glory, and then get into college and then play that way. Obviously, most of us were good enough to really get to a high school anyways, so this kind of removes that. I just wish there was an option to select if I wanted to play in high school, or if I just want to do the questionnaire that they've mentioned will place you at a certain ability level and get scholarships that way. To finish this off for the day, I want to once again reiterate that I do believe this game will be the best iteration we have ever seen, but these are just things that the team at EA could change that would make it a near perfect experience. With only a few weeks left, be sure to stay tuned for more content as we will recap the Road to Glory mode next week. Don't forget to drop a sub and comment below to enter the drawing for the game. I appreciate all of you who tuned in, and I will see you in the next one.